BBC Sounds.
Sahiba, Sahiba.
When we started the building, we had about £90,000. Gurdwara cost us roughly 5 million. The need for having a purpose-built Gurdwara, because the old Gurdwara wasn't big enough for the congregation.
It was always a trial with the congregation. If the congregation were going to support us, it was going to be a success.
Thousands of Sikhs are celebrating the opening of Scotland's first purpose-built temple. A procession went from the old temple to the new Gurdwara in Glasgow's Pollock Shields before a day of activities to mark the opening. The new £4 million building will be a spiritual and community hub for Scotland's 10,000 Sikhs.
I have heard it said that worship is the outward manifestation of belief. Now, sometimes that involves singing or praying, but sometimes worship involves actions. What happens inside this rather beautiful building in Albert Drive in Glasgow is an excellent example of that. Yes, people come here to pray, but they also come here to learn or teach, to keep fit. They come here to do things to help the wider community. And every day they come here to make huge quantities of food, which they then share or give away.
The scripture says, "Bhukhe bhagat na kijai," which literally means, if I'm hungry, God, don't expect me to worship you. Feed me first.
I'm Mark Stephen, and this week's Our Story belongs to the Scottish Sikh temple, the Glasgow Gurdwara. Waiting for me at the front door was Gurdwara volunteer Prajat.
Hi, welcome to the Gurdwara. So we're just going to go in now.
It's a surprisingly large building.
Oh, it's huge. Yes, very spacious. Yeah, very spacious. So we've got, to your left, we've got a langar hall, which is a free kitchen to everyone. And to your right here, we've got 2 cloakrooms. So one's for ladies and one's for gents. And 2 sets of stairs, which will take us upstairs into the main prayer hall, the main darbar hall.
Okay, and you've got sinks on the left-hand side here.
Yeah, so we've got 2 sets of sinks. Yeah, so what we usually do is we come in and we go into one of the cloakrooms, remove our shoes, and then we come and wash our hands. And we need to make sure that our head is covered all the time.
That's somebody washing their hands just now.
Yeah.
Perfect timing, perfect timing.
Yeah, so every Gurdwara will have a different name. But, you know, the things getting done inside the Gurdwaras, the protocols, everything else is same.
Okay, so the full name of this one, everybody knows it as the Glasgow Gurdwara, but I mean, what is it actually?
The full name of this Gurdwara is Gurdwara Guru Granth Sahib Sikh Sabha.
Which means?
So, Gurdwara is Gurdwara. Guru Granth Sahib is the name of our scriptures. Sikh Sabha as in the Sikh community. The literal meaning of Gurdwara is a door to the Guru, so door to the teacher, and it's open to everyone. So Gurdwara in Gurmukhi, so Gurmukhi is a language. Gurmukhi is made up of 2 words, Gur and Mukhi, so the language or the words have come out of Guru's mouth. Okay, so this place acts as a religious, social, and sport hub for Sikh communities, you know, and other communities as well. So it was Guru Nanak who established Dharamsal. So Dharamsal was the name prior to the Gurdwara. So Dharamsal is a place of followers to learn about the religion and essential social aspects of life. These were the seats of learning actually, and also, you know, they provided food at that time and shelter to the travellers and the needy. Over time, these came to be called Gurdwaras.
There are currently 8 Sikh temples in Scotland, 4 in Glasgow and 1 each in Edinburgh, Aberdeen, Dundee and Irvine. But the opening of this one, the Gurdwara in Albert Drive, was arguably the biggest milestone for the Sikh community since they first settled in Scotland way back in the early 1900s. Volunteers Vijaypal and Sukhpreet told me why they felt they had to build this temple.
The need for having a purpose-built building for Gurdwara because the old Gurdwara wasn't big enough for the congregation. We could not have classes there, Punjabi classes, music classes, other facilities like we have here, martial arts.
I mean, just looking at this building, it's a substantial, imposing building. It's done in a sort of pink stone. It has the domes on the top, the central golden dome. I take it that's some sort of echo of the Golden Temple in Amritsar.
Yes, it's a feature with the Gurdwara.
And, you know, something like this, how much did this cost?
Gurdwara cost us roughly in the region of 5 million.
How do you raise that money? Where did it come from?
When we started the building, we had about £90,000. And the trustees put £10,000 each from their pocket into the funds, and the rest being the congregation vouching or offering. Like Sukhpreet might say, I'll give you 5,000, somebody else say, I'll give you 1,000. And then we went around people's houses. And we paid for this less than 5 years.
My late mother-in-law grew up in the Western Isles in a very, very strict religious family. And consequently hated Sundays for the rest of her life. She just loathed Sundays. Some people would see this as an obligation. Some people would see this as a duty. I get the feeling that neither of you do. You'd be running towards this more than anything else.
Absolutely. The reason is there's no compulsion. No one forces us to do this. And also, a substantial part of attending is the social aspect. Not everyone would go upstairs and intently listen to the scripture being sung or being read. Although we are expected to understand and inculcate the values from the scripture, so much of what the youngsters are here for, sometimes the elderly are here for, anyone else, is the social aspect. Whether it's attending weddings, funerals, going about their normal classes, for example, once a week, whether they're learning the percussion, the tabla instrument, the harmonium, which is like a reed organ instrument, learning their Punjabi language, or learning the scripture. There's so many things happening. Or maybe just having a free meal, keeping warm.
That is a part of our religion, the langar, free meal. Our Guru said, you have to have the langar before, which is actually equality. When we sit together, whether it's you, me, or him, we're sitting together regardless of your status. So you're equal. And then you go upstairs to do the prayer.
The scripture says, Pukhe Bhagat na kijai, which literally means, if I'm hungry, God, don't expect me to worship you. Feed me first.
That is wonderful.
No, that is the principles of our religion.
I'm not being flippant here, but I admire any religion that understands the importance of grub. Just to get a sense of how the daily making and sharing of food fits into the scheme of things, I headed back indoors with Sukhpreet. I have to say it was considerably warmer in there.
Washing your hands, you've got bare feet, your head's covered.
That's right.
We've covered all the bases.
Yes, we have. Yes, because there's a little bit of a protocol before going into any Gurdwara. So you remove your shoes, you wash your hands, and make sure you don't have any intoxicants. If you're a Sikh, you'll ideally not have any intoxicants on you, but any visitors coming to a Gurdwara don't have any intoxicants like tobacco or alcohol on your person, and make sure your head is covered, whether you're male or a female, and then you can go and visit any part of the Gurdwara.
You're going to be taking me into something called the langar. What is the langar?
So the langar is the community kitchen.
Okay.
So let's go inside the langar hall.
Well, this is a proper industrial scale kitchen.
I know, it is, yeah.
Introduce yourself, tell me who you are and what you are.
My name's Shindo Kaur and I'm one of the Sevadar that help out in the Gurdwara in here, Glasgow Gurdwara.
So Seva, the word Seva means service, and Dar is the one who does the service.
Okay.
So Sevadar will be a service person, a volunteer.
This is lentil curry being made today.
Smells fine.
Right, and then we make a separate sauce for the lentil curry. So in here we put like all spices and herbs, and there's onions here. So there's going to be ginger and green chilies and stuff.
Right.
So
Fine.
once this mixture is ready to cook, we'll add the flavour to the dal pot there, and then that's when we start serving it outside then.
Right. Okay. And
Right.
again,
And
the,
it's
the
just-
scale
yeah.
the scale of these pots. I
Yeah.
mean, you could bath a baby in that one and bath a small adult in that
Yeah,
one.
you could. They're quite big.
I mean, this is a massive industrial scale kitchen. How many people can you cater for you?
Roughly, we sometimes, on special occasions, we can make food for about 2,000 people, You're
kidding me?
Yeah, on a Sunday alone, we get so many people coming in, 800 people definitely come in. We get a lot of students coming in, we get asylum seekers coming in, and we get most of the people that come to, do the prayers at the Gurdwara, so they can come in and help themselves to a wee meal.
Okay, and what's the overall philosophy behind the langar?
So the word langar literally means anchor. It's an old Persian word, and the langar is an anchor in many ways for the Sikh community. It brings everyone together. Food is the basic need, requirement, which brings people together, which allows them to connect with each other. So the Sikh gurus, Guru Nanak in particular, who was inspired by some ideas before his time. So Eastern worlds, there has been a concept of Bhandara. Sufi, before Sikhs, Sufis were known to have langars. And so the word langar as an anchor was taken by Guru Nanak and really manifests itself in terms of the Sikh philosophy. It's a representation of our service to the community. It's also about equality. It's about bringing people together. It's about sitting together without any differences of rich, poor, gender, anything of that nature.
Is it a requirement of the faith that the food has to be vegetarian?
The reason why langar is vegetarian is because the founding fathers wanted something to be acceptable to the widest variety or widest sort of community, and vegetarian food was considered something which anyone could eat. So even meat eaters would eat vegetarian food. It goes back to the ethos of egalitarianism or equality. So equality of sitting down. So outside you see something which you call pangat. Pangat basically means sitting in a line. Mm-hmm. But the idea is you sit at the same level. So that's equality of sitting together. And similarly in the ingredients, there's an equality so that the food which is cooked is acceptable to the widest community or widest number of people. So vegetarian food was considered to be acceptable to most people.
This must have been exceptionally difficult because this is so community based. Mm-hmm. It's so important to be together, to share together, to eat together that, during COVID must have been murder.
Yeah, it was because there's quite a few people that used to come in 3 days a week, and we used to supply nearly 400 meals, and people used to go distribute them to people's houses. Hot meals were made maybe lentil curry, rice and stuff, and they used to take it to all these elderly people, and it didn't matter if it were just Sikh people or anything. It was anybody that got fed. That sometimes people just phoned us here and we would give it, and then lots of families had COVID and they couldn't actually cook for themselves, and we were actually delivering to their houses as well during COVID.
And that service to the community didn't stop there. They fed people who came to the Gurdwara. They delivered to people's homes. But then they came up with an innovative plan to support the local food bank. Here's volunteer Jindi Osla.
Before we started with the actual food bank, Glasgow City Council got in touch with us through an organisation called Glasgow Council for Voluntary Services. And Glasgow City Council couldn't supply food packages in the Glasgow area to people that were self-isolating. They could provide some, but they couldn't provide all. They were overwhelmed. So they reached out to us through this organisation and asked if we could cover anyone inquiring from a G41 area postcode. So we were happy to help. I'd get an email in to say that there's a person that's called, can anybody get in touch and provide a dry food parcel. So that went on for a good 7-8 months. We were supplying food parcels, people were self-isolating, they couldn't get out. what we realised is that because some were from the Asian community, they couldn't go to a traditional food bank because they didn't have things like chapati flour. They didn't have the oils. They didn't have some of the dals, some of the ingredients required for that particular for the particular food that they wanted to make. So that's where we stepped in, and that worked really well for us, and for, I think, the organisation as well.
Who came up with the idea of actually combining those ingredients into curries and giving the curries away?
Well, later on, what happened was when we got in touch with the food bank, what we found was because of the utility costs, people weren't actually taking all the food from a food bank. They would actually, some of them were refusing potatoes and other things that were taking too long to cook. I know Audrey quite well from South East Food Bank, and I said to Audrey that, do you think your service users could use freshly made, prepared vegetarian food? They would be in microwavable, freezer-friendly containers. So all they had to do was microwave them or just heat them up for a few minutes. And it's a freshly prepared meal. And she says that, well, we can do this as a trial. And the trial went very well.
I'm Audrey Flanagan. I'm the manager of the Glasgow South East Food Bank. And today we're at the Glasgow South East Distribution Centre.
You've got racks and racks of stuff here, the type of stuff you would expect, pastas, dried foods, toiletries, all that kind of stuff. What's your connection with the Gurdwara?
The Gurdwara have, for a number of years now, given us donations. They've collected and brought them in, and the kind of things that you see on the shelf, the dried and the tinned. But more recently, in the last year, they also come to us on a Friday with 100 curries, freshly made curries that morning. So that's been great.
And how do your clients actually respond to the curries?
They love it. They call it Curry Friday. Fortunately, we don't see the same people every week, or I think we'd have them all in on a Friday looking for their curry.
So it's regarded as something of a treat?
Oh yes, Any kind of fresh food like that would be regarded as a treat. The fact that when it comes in, it's easy to take up the road, to stick in the microwave, you can eat it there and then, is great for them.
Yeah, and I imagine the real health benefits of it being fresh too.
It's fresh, it's vegetarian because it's from the Gurdwara, so it's all vegetables that are in it, so it's extremely healthy.
Were you surprised when the Gurdwara approached you?
I was surprised at what they wanted to offer. They've always been extremely generous to us. But when he came and said about the fresh food, and I did have to think about it, to think, was this going to work? Was it not going to work? So we decided we'd try it and see. But we realised within 2 weeks that it was a goer. I mean, it was just amazing.
Mm-hmm. No, it's interesting because we're in a Newham church here. This sort of interfaith approach, sometimes you struggle to think you could slide a cigarette paper between various faiths. It's just the drive towards kindness is almost universal.
But it is the drive towards kindness. It's the drive towards kindness and love. And if we all share that, because our faiths are different, and there might be things that we wouldn't always do together, we might do prayer, we might not do services together, but we can work with the public, we can love and be kind to those that don't have anything. And that's something that universally we can share.
Audrey Flanagan there. Commendable though this is, this sort of kindness costs. At some stage, somebody has to put their hand in their pocket to pay for the fresh food being donated to the food bank. Jindy took that problem straight back to his fellow volunteers at the Gurdwara.
Well, what we did was, when we came up with the idea, we said, how can we sell it basically to the congregation? How would they support this? So I sat down with the kitchen team, and we started working out what the ingredients costs are, what it would cost for gas, something towards electricity, something towards the water cost. And we came up with £100, and that roughly gives about 100 to 150 portions of food. And then we made the banner. You probably saw the banner as you've been walking around the Gurdwara. We made flyers and we did a promotional video, and we put 2 stalls on a Sunday, 2 Sundays in February, to say, this is what we're doing, and would you like to sponsor a slot? It's £100, and we'll take photos, come along and help make the food, come and help to distribute the food. And it was always a trial with the congregation. We couldn't have done it without the congregation. If the congregation were going to support us, it was going to be a success. And they really did support us, in the droves.
There are other cultures for whom, and I'm thinking young people particularly, they might conceivably find the idea of kindness or love to a stranger embarrassing. Do you talk about it in those terms?
Well, actually, the Gurdwara itself has always been an open place, so we are used to having a lot of different people coming through, and we already have quite a lot of communities that do come through. So you've seen the kitchen yourself, and anybody's allowed to walk in. So a lot of the Sikh community are used to having and giving to other communities. I mean, the main principle is that regardless of all faiths, we are all actually, from humanity. We are all humans at the end of the day, and that's the way we should look at things. Regardless of if somebody needs help, we should step up and help them regardless of who they are.
You really don't have to spend a lot of time in the Glasgow Gurdwara to realise that the Sikh community there are completely united, not just in helping each other and helping fellow Sikhs, but helping anybody regardless of faith or background. Now, the one place I hadn't been so far was where they actually worship. It's called the Divan.
So I'm Prabjot. Now we are taking you to upstairs of Gurdwara, and we will talk about Divan Hall. So Divan literally means a court. Mm-hmm. It's the main worship hall or the devotional hall where the congregation is being held. It's a massive hall, and there's a pathway which leads onto the center. And if you see there, it's covered with a nice clothes. That clothes are called Rumala Sahib. And underneath those clothes is Guru Granth Sahib. So Guru Granth Sahib, it's a holy scripture. It's a Sikh holy scripture. Okay. And for Sikhism, it's a very respected and high authority scripture. We consider it as a living guru. In Sikhism, there are 10 gurus or 10 masters. So when the 10th master, Guru Gobind Singh Ji, he never passed on any of the authority to human successor. Instead, he passed this authority to this particular scripture. We call it as a Guru Granth Sahib.
So effectively, you have now not a living guru, but an eternal guru.
Yes, so that's the eternal guru for us. Okay. It's in the form of a book, but again, we don't call it as a book. We consider it as eternal guru, and there it's a composition of poems and writings by our Sikh. Not only the beauty is that the compositions and the writings which are in this scripture, it's not only written by our Sikh gurus, but also it's been taken from other Indian saints from diverse faith. There are writings from some of the Muslim saints and some from the Hindu saints, ranging from 13th to 17th centuries. So basic idea is inclusion and equality, and that's the key message inside this. And everything written is in this scripture is in the poetic form. And if you see on this stage, usually it's on the, we always keep our Guru Granth Sahib Ji on to the right. So if you see these, so these are the musical instruments. Okay. I'll show you. So that's called harmonium, and that's the tabla. Tabla is like a drum.
Can you play the harmonium?
Yes, I can play the harmonium.
Oh, go on.
Oh, you want me to?
Would you mind?
Yes. No.
So you should never have admitted it. Oh. I'll come round the front. All right.
Let me get someone who can play the percussion.
Oh yeah, great, fine.
So it's like a mini form of piano. So, and this is like a mini form of drums.
So because the Sikh scripture is written in poetic language, with every verse explaining what type of musical composition should it be sung in. So the Guru has given us an advice. We don't necessarily always do that.
Yeah.
We sometimes sing it in a popular style.
Okay. Do you share this in common with the Hindu faith?
a lot of Eastern philosophies. There are several shades of Hindu faiths, and several of them, for them, music is quite integral. Certainly for the Sikh religion, the reading and then the singing of the reading is very important. And Prabjot now, along with Manpreet, is here on the percussion, and they will try and sing a short Shabad for us.
I cannot believe you got a drummer that fast. I'm very impressed.
So just sing a Vaheguru Simran, which is like Vaheguru, O Great Lord. So just one word, Vaheguru will sing along, and you're welcome to join as well. Vaheguru, 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 Vaheguru.
How much of an element of this is outreach, of actually explaining to people what you do, inviting new people in?
So, Sikhs as a religion, we don't believe in converting others.
Or proselytizing.
Proselytizing. We don't have an active proselytizing system at all. If someone really wants to come in and become part of the congregation, whether they look like one or not, they're welcome to be part of the congregation. But in order to talk about who we are, where we come from, what is our story, we are very much interested in sharing in the communities that we live in. Sikhism grew in the parts which are now in northern India, parts of Pakistan. That's where the religion emanated from, came from. The gurus lived their lives in those areas. Today, Sikhs live in all over the world. So whether they are in North America, whether they are in Scotland or they are in Malaysia, it's important for Sikh communities to share the story where they are living, be part of the mainstream, be part of where they are living, form friendships, form alliances. And for that, we want to be open, we want to share our story. And one way of doing that is, for example, we are very active in the Doors Open Day. A lot of people from Glasgow, from rest of Scotland, come in the Doors Open Day, learn about the faith, learn about what we do here. And this is just one way. So school tours, for example, another way, how we want to share our story, so that if there are any misconceptions, if there are any issues about how the other is seen, that otherness is removed. And that's why we are always ready to share our story.
And I think it's an admirable story. A faith which is built on equality, love and kindness, but which doesn't seem to feel the need to trumpet any of those things. The Sikh faith is visible here by example through what they do, and I really admire that. And in case you're wondering, yes, of course we tried the lentil curry. They very kindly invited us for lunch, and it was delicious. My thanks to everyone who took the time to talk to me at the Glasgow Gurdwara. I'm Mark Stephen. This has been Our Story on BBC Radio Scotland. If you missed any of it, or you'd like to hear it again, you can find it on BBC Sounds. Until the next time, thanks for listening.